There you go. I'm just recording this for people who can't attend, but don't worry, it will only be recording me, not you. Good evening then. Thank you everyone for joining. Those of you who don't know me, I'm Laura Stanley. I'm based at Ackland Burley School and I'm one of the Pathways and Progress leaders. And part of my job, a big part of my job, is around pathways, is around post-16, post-18, transition from year 11 into year 12, UCAS coordination. And so, of course, part of my job there is what we call the early entry courses. So they are medicine and medicine adjacent courses, dentistry, veterinary, which we're going to be talking about this evening, and also Oxbridge. There is going to be another webinar really similar to this for students who are interested in Oxbridge after half term on the 9th of November, and the details about that will be in the family bulletin from this week. So today then isn't intended to be a completely top to bottom, absolute full explanation of everything to do with applying to medical school. It is intended to be a kind of a summary and an introduction for students in year 11 and in year 12 who may be thinking about medicine. So I'm really going to go through the aspects of the entry requirements, the admissions process, the interview process, but I'm going to go through all that fairly briefly so you have a sense of what you need to do now if you're in year 11 or year 12 and you're thinking of applying for medical school. And then later in the year, I will do another version of this, which is much more in depth. Which will look at aspects of MMIs, the structure of the interviews, what might come up in what kind of questions or what kind of things might come up in your interview, how to prepare for your UCAT or your BMAT, all those kind of things. But I'm not going to go into that kind of detail today. This is intended to just be an overview of the process. If we've got time at the end, then I'm more than happy to take questions. That would be great. If not, then my email address will be at the end. Please feel free to get in touch. So, I think the main question to answer is probably why on earth in year 11 or at the beginning of year 12 are we talking about what you're going to be doing or what your young people are going to be doing in once they leave in year 13? And that's because medicine has this very kind of special place. Same with dentistry, same with veterinary as a degree course, in that it needs quite a lot of preparation. And students who apply for it are expected to have undertaken a significant amount of prep before they get to that point in the application. For example, pre-assessments, which are required by nearly every medical school, as you'll see, they actually begin at the end of year 12. So the booking those and preparing for those has to be done during year 12. Work experience is essentially mandatory for these courses. And the applications themselves have to be careful and have to be considered. Now, all those things, and as well, just the length of the medical degree and the amount of work, and of course, the cost of it as well, means that medicine isn't for everyone. But preparing now and looking at those preparatory things now mean that you will have plenty of time to decide, and you won't be rushing those decisions in, June, July of year 12, or even, the beginning part of year 13. So a few key facts then. First thing you need to know is that the application deadline for medicine is earlier than other UCAS courses, apart from Oxford and Cambridge. And this is why you sometimes hear them referred to as early entry courses. So the application deadline for medicine is the 15th of October each year. The standard UCAS deadline is the 25th of January, the year after. So this year, 15th of October 2022, so it's just been, and the UCAS application for all of the courses is in on the 25th of January 2023. So if you are a medicine applicant, you have to get that application in quite significantly before everybody else. And when your peers are writing their personal statements in their personal development lessons, then you will have already sent off your application. So that's one of the reasons that we need to prep earlier. The deadline's just earlier. As I've already mentioned, there is a pre-assessment required. There are two pre-assessments for medicine. One is called a BMAT and one is called a UCAT. Most universities, most medical schools take the UCAT, some ask for the BMAT, and you'll need to check the website of the individual university to see which assessment that university requires. No university asks for both. So the only reason that you have to ever do both is if you're applying for a BMAT uni and a UCAT uni, and if possible, we'd try to avoid that, so you don't have to pay for and sit 2 different rounds of pre-assessments. Expect an interview. You will have an interview for medical school. And as I've already said, and we'll touch on this again later, work experience is mandatory, and you must reflect what you've done for your work experience and what you've learned in your work experience in your personal statement. You'll also maybe be expected to talk about it in your interview. So the good reason to, again, start preparing early is so you have time to source that work experience, try to get a variety of work experience in different settings. So I think, again, a really common question is this: just how competitive is it? Like, how hard is it to get into medical school? So unfortunately, competition for undergrad medicine has increased every single year for the past 5 years. There was a huge increase in 2021, which we are putting down to the COVID effect. I'm part of the UCAS advisors board, and one thing that we saw there is that applications for all allied healthcare or healthcare adjacent courses went through the roof in sort of 21, 22, because public health and health awareness is so on people's minds at the moment. But unfortunately, the number of spaces available hasn't risen in line with the number of applicants, so it is getting harder to get into medical school. The competition ratio is estimated to be essentially 4 applicants for every 1 space in 2022, 2023. So compared to standard degree courses, it is competitive. It is not easy to get in. Something that's particularly important to students who are currently in year 11, and obviously very useful to students who are in year 12, but they have already made these choices, is what subjects you need. And as you can see here from this little pie chart, then it's chemistry and biology that are the 2 that show up again and again. So 14 med schools, you have to have an A level in chemistry and an A level in biology. 12, you can have either or. 10, you have to have chemistry. 2, you have to have biology, and just 1 don't have a subject preference. What some of them will say as well is they want you to have chemistry and biology, for example, or chemistry and another STEM subject, so all your maths or something alongside it. And preference tends to be given to students who have a suite of STEM subjects. Nearly every medical school sets some form of subject and grade requirements for students studying. That won't surprise you. And quite frankly, if you don't have those subjects and those grades, there isn't a lot of point in putting yourself through it. There's not a lot of point in revising for a UCAT, for example, paying for a UCAT, because you have to pay for these pre-assessments, going through all the effort of doing an early entry. If you haven't got biology and chemistry, say, or one or the other, there's no point, because you just won't get an interview. You'll just be outright rejected. Now, Newcastle Medical School doesn't have any subject requirements. So if you are a year 12 and you have not taken the right combination of subjects, then Newcastle might still be an option for you. Again, obviously check their website, but they are the only one that don't have those subject requirements. So if you are currently in year 11 and you're planning to go to medical school, biology and chemistry are what you are looking at. What grades do you need to get in then? It will absolutely not surprise you, as you can see from the little bar chart there, that the vast majority of medical schools want 3 A's. And again, only applies to the ones where you meet the minimum requirements. So you need to make sure that you're working at this level, or there's no point in applying, because you will just be rejected at the application stage. The vast majority are 3 A's or above. Kent and Medway and Buckingham have slightly lower requirements. So if you are during year 12, if you're grading at roundabout, a mixture of A's and B's rather than A's and above, then they are two medical schools that you can have a look at. And again, shock to no one, Cambridge has the highest grade requirements. You need to be predicted 3A stars to sorry, A star, A star, A. That one's correct, to be looking at Cambridge. This is just something to bear in mind. If you are, again, in year 12, you need to be thinking, right, I need to be predicted 3As by the end of year 12. If you're in year 11, your chemistry and biology and maths, for example, need to be good enough that you are going to be looking at straight A grades at A level to consider medicine. Dentistry and veterinary are exactly the same. If you are still wanting to work in healthcare, but you're not looking at A grades at A level, or you're looking at doing a BTEC, for example, instead of A levels, there are lots of degrees and lots of allied healthcare professions that you can go into, things like speech therapy, drama therapy, radiography, pharmacy, although you do need sciences for pharmacy. But lots of these different areas where BTECs and lower A-level grades are accepted. Medicine, unfortunately, is not flexible on grades or subjects. I think a question, again, that comes up quite a lot, I'm often asked this at things like the Swap Open evening, is should I do 4 A-levels? Or should I stick to 3? If I've taken 4 A-levels at the start of year 12, should I keep doing 4 A-levels or should I drop one? If I'm in year 11, what should I do? So the vast majority of medical schools, so 32 out of 39 of them, don't consider a 4th A-level at all. Like, they literally just ignore it. They look at your 3 best and they ignore the 4th one. The remaining 7, it is beneficial. So, you can see here on this little pie chart that 3 give it extra points, 3 just say it's beneficial, they don't say exactly why, and 1 medical school actually lowers the grade by 1. Medical Projects, who are a company who provide medical summer schools and provided a lot of the stats for the presentation that I'm doing today, actually only advise that you study or continue with a 4th A-level if you're going to apply to one of those 7, you're easily scoring A stars in year 12 in all of your subject areas, and it's not impacting on your other grades at all. They have found from their research, where they have spoken to medical schools, that it's in nearly all situations, it's better to have like A than it is to have A, or certainly A, B. And it's much better to have A star, A, for example. So the information from the medical schools themselves, from Medical Projects, and from me is that 4 A-levels are not needed if you are a medic. It is better to have that biology, chemistry, physics, maths, or another 3rd subject of your choice, and absolutely smash it, knock it out the park in those, rather than trying to split yourself between 4. Unless you really want to go to one of those 7. One thing that surprises a lot of people is how many medical schools look at GCSEs, and it is basically all of them. The short answer is all of them. So again, super important for year 11s and maybe for year 12s, because in year 12, you do have the opportunity to resit some GCSEs if you need to. Students often overlook this when they apply. Now, Imperial, Cambridge, Newcastle don't have any minimum GCSE requirements. Some unis assign a score to them and use it in the selection process. Most have subject and grade requirements. It's usually English and maths, English language and maths 6 or above, and often science, either additional science or triple science, again at 6 or 7, or ideally better. So if you are in year 11 and your ambition is medical school, then it is really important to do as well as you can in all of your GCSEs, because they are used way down the line by these medical schools when you are applying. So just Just keep that in the back of your mind as you're studying this year. If you're in year 12, you're thinking of medical school, please make sure that you check. If you are, obviously, if you're doing science A levels, then you will have your maths at 6 or above, but the English has tripped some people up in the past. So please make sure that your English language is a 6 or above. So another really important part of the process is the admissions tests around medical school. Surprisingly, 2 med schools don't have an exam, but the rest of them do. The other 37 of them do. When you apply to medical school, you can apply for 4. So you can apply for 4 different medical schools. So if you're going to, you could try and hedge your bets and go, I'm only going to apply for these 2, that Buckingham and Lancashire, because they don't have any admissions tests. I'm going to try and get through without doing an admissions assessment. But that would mean you could only apply for 2 and no more. And that's not the best odds. So everyone that I have worked with since I've been doing this job has taken at least the UCAT or the BMAT. As you can see, the UCAT is way more widely used, 30 unis. The BMAT is only 7. So again, you check on the website of the individual uni will tell you, and there's also some links at the end of this presentation that tells you all the entry requirements of all the different medical schools in the UK. So you can also look at that to check. They are used obviously to filter the number of applicants down. Because everyone applying pretty much has 3 A's, so the universities also look at how well you score on your UCAT or your BMAT. The UCAT is done in summer between year 12 and year 13, and you get your score back before you apply on the 15th of October, so you know how well you've done. The BMAT, however, isn't done until it's usually like the last day of October, sometimes the first day of November in year 13. So you don't know your result. You haven't sat it yet when you apply, when the deadline has been. As I say, the med school will tell you which one you need to sit. You never need to do them both unless you choose to. And one thing I haven't put on here, but is just to bear in mind that both of these assessments have a cost associated with them. They're about £70, 60, £70. The UCAT is marginally more expensive. I think it's 75. I think the BMAT is 60 this year. There are bursaries available to support families with that, but not from us as a school. They come directly from BMAT or UCAT. However, if when it gets to that stage, if you do need help with that, then I can absolutely help you. The BMAT you can sit in school. The UCAT you have to go to like a special Pearson test centre in order to sit it. So again, just bear in mind when you do your research that you will have to look into those assessments. We don't do sort of classes for BMATs and UCATs in school, but we can give you support and we can direct you to lots of places online where you can get support. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few slides' time. The last part of the process then, so you do your application, or if you do your UCAT, you sit your UCAT, you do your application, then you do your BMAT if you're doing it. And the final part of the process is the interview process. So the majority of medical schools now do something called MMIs, where there are multiple mini interviews. And what you do is you go along to your interview and then you go around like a series of different stations where you are asked different types of questions, or you might have to do a role play, or they might give you a task to do, and they all take like a short amount of time. And as you can see, that's overwhelmingly the way that medicine interviews are conducted now. And they can take place anytime from like November of year 13 through to April of year 13. And you can get called at super short notice, like 2 weeks notice. So if you are, from the moment that you do your UCAT or when you're putting your application process, when you're in that summer of year 12, start practicing and start looking up what MMIs are, looking up MMI questions, and doing your own research, because you will have very little time between being called and going. We work with a couple of organisations that provide mock interviews for students who are applying for medicine, and so we can usually provide our applicants with at least one mock interview experience before they go for their real one. Bear in mind, you probably have to travel to your interview in person. So if you're applying to a uni outside of London, obviously factor that, the travel and the time and stuff into there. And we've talked about what MMIs are. Panel interviews are a straightforward interview. You sit in front of 3 professors and they talk to you about why you want to do medicine. Straightforward. Well, work experience, the last sort of section that I'm going to talk about this afternoon then. Probably for a lot of people, one of the hardest things about the application is getting work experience or getting what they feel is enough work experience. Now, it is essential. And medical schools really, really prioritize work experience, not because they want to make you jump through hoops and because they want to make it difficult, but because they want you to be coming into this career having made an informed choice. Being a doctor in real life, obviously, is not like it is on the telly. And they want you to know that and have spent time in an environment where you've experienced what the job is like, so you can make an informed choice about how you want to spend, 6 years studying and the rest of your career. You need to show that you've got a really good understanding of what doctors do. And you need to show that in when you write your personal statement, but also by choosing work experience. Now, again, as part of this research, medical projects went out to medical schools and they asked them, what do you want, what skills do you want young people to gain from their work experience? And the overwhelming one, the top one, 36% said they want students to have an experience of caring. There's a real emphasis on collaborative working and care working as part of being a doctor. So you can undergo 2 different types of work experience. You can directly observe healthcare, like in a clinical capacity, which I think is what people often think of when we talk about medical work experience. Like you can go to a hospital and follow and shadow a doctor. You can go to a GP and shadow, but actually that doesn't get you a lot of caring or team working skill. It doesn't sort of foster those skills very well. Actually, working with people in a caring or a service capacity does that much better. So, for example, volunteering in a care home would give you work experience that would be much more relevant to a lot of medical schools than doing a day of shadowing a GP receptionist. It's really worth thinking about that, because work experience in hospitals, especially in your post-COVID world, it can be really, really hard to get hold of. And doctors are very busy people. So that if you're hanging on and hanging on, you're waiting for to get some work experience in a hospital, think about going to something like a care home instead, because the skills that you'll pick up there, you'll be able to write about those in a much more relevant way in your personal statement, and you'll be able to show these skills, your caring, teamwork, insight, much more clearly. So don't be put off by the work experience aspect of it. There are lots of different ways to gain work experience that are not just going to a hospital. How else can you get an advantage when applying to medical school then? Well, you need high predicted grades. So during year 12, make sure that you're constantly talking to your teachers about your predicted grades. If you are not hitting those A's, then you ask them what you can do. Sitting an EPQ can help 6 medical schools lower their entry requirements if you get an A, only if you get an A or an A star, and a further 3 say that an EPQ is beneficial in a general way, but they don't say why. So you're doing an EPQ alongside 3 A levels might be useful. And having a really high quality personal statement. Only 2 universities say they don't really use personal statements. The other 37 medical schools do. And so making sure that you do your personal statement early, you read lots of examples, and you take time over it can all help you in your application. We start work on personal statements on UCAS after Easter, after HSEs in year 12. We start during that term. There is lots and lots of input into UCAS applications during year 12. It's not something year 11s have to worry about yet. Just to summarize that dentistry and veterinary applications are really similar. The process is the same deadline. You need pre-assessments in nearly all cases. The interview style, the MMIs are exactly the same. The entry requirements are almost identical. Overall, dentistry is slightly less competitive, but veterinary is more competitive. It's worth bearing in mind that in your dentistry MMI, you will have physical dexterity tests as well as academic tests, because obviously it is very practical. And if you are thinking of a veterinary application, you need extremely extensive work experience, at least a week of full practical experience for veterinary. So that is really something that you have to get a move on with if you are planning on it. And there are links there to the application guides for both of those pathways. We provide support. We provide in-school support. Ms. Maker can help with work experience if you're struggling to find places. We have an aspirational team which works during year 12 for to I do webinars, we give information. There are loads of free or cheap webinars and conferences and workshops online, PopMed, Medic Portal, universities themselves. Sometimes it's like a $5 for a full day. There are past papers and sample exams and MMI guides and mock interviews all over the internet, but please beware of expensive courses, things that are going to charge you £2,500 for a week's residential, or anything calling itself online work experience, especially if it charges money. It's probably somebody just making cash out of you rather than something that's actually any good. So, bear that in mind. Come to me. If you see something you want to do, come to me and ask if it's any good. This is the example of the kind of things I mean. On Thursday, the 3rd of November at 7 o'clock, there is an online medicine student panel from the University of Leicester, completely free, that you can join in, live Q&A for year 12 and 13. And on the 19th of November, there's an introduction to surgery event for year 12s. Again, it's in Leicester, so it does involve a little bit of travel, but it is an absolutely brilliant hands-on day. And things like this from unis are nearly always free. They do not charge you to do them. Year 11. So very, very quickly with the timeline, early mid-year 11, start considering planning your voluntary work experience and making sure that you choose the right subjects. Year 12, gaining work experience, volunteering all through year 12, making sure your grades are right. And then in June, if you're applying to UCAT unis, you need to book that UCAT. And then in year 13, obviously, is when it all kicks off by finalizing your statement, sending your application, doing your BMAT, doing your interviews, and the whole rest of it. At the end here, there's just some links to some different useful things, including the full entry requirements for all UK medical schools and their A-level and GCSE requirements and EPQ and all that kind of business, and a really good guide from Med Schools UK, the Medic Portal, and the outreach at Imperial is really, really good there, PopMed. There's my email address. If you want to ask me anything or you want to get in touch, please do. I work Monday to Thursday and I'm always happy to answer questions by email, give you a call or set up a chat like this. I mainly work from home, so I'm not often in school, but I'm always available on Teams or Zoom or similar. Okay, I've just a couple of questions in the chat, which I'm just going to have a quick drink and then I'll answer. So the application deadline for year 13 has passed, yes. But if you are in year 13 and you're only considering medicine now, it would be way, way too late anyway, because you wouldn't have had time to do that work experience or sit your assessments. But if you're in year 12, the application deadline is a year from now. And if you're in year 11, it's 2 years from now. So people that I'm talking to today hopefully have at least a year or 2 years to to apply. And the second question is about BTEC sciences. Unfortunately, BTEC is not accepted by medical schools. It does have to be A levels. There are a number of allied, as I say, allied healthcare courses, degrees, vocational degrees, such things like radiography, that are absolutely brilliant, and are open to students with BTEC applied science, for example, but medicine would not be. There are a tiny handful of what are called medicine gateway or medicine foundation courses. There's only about 7 in the whole country, and there's only 1 in London, and most of them are outside. They are medicine courses for students who have slightly lower grades than the standard 3As, but they usually have other widening participation criteria. So, for example, you have to be a student who's received free school meals or currently receives a bursary or is from an underrepresented group. And even then, they don't usually accept BTECs. It has to be A levels for medicine. If anybody else has any questions, if you'd like to just pop them in the chat, please. We've got about 5 minutes left to answer anything. Okay, fantastic. I know that was very quick and it's a lot of information. But as I say, this is just designed to be a real introduction to at this stage. Links and opportunities, where can we find out more info or the links to them? This PowerPoint is going to be on the year 12 page of the Ackland Burley website. So if you go to Ackland Burley and then year teams and then year 12, it will be posted on there. The recording of this webinar is also going to be on our YouTube channel. The link will be in the Families Bulletin. And if you want the slides sent directly to you, please just drop me an email and I will send them straight over to your email in the morning. Lovely. So if you want to ask me any more questions that are directly relevant to you or directly relevant to your child or their specific circumstances, please do drop me an email. If you want to talk about anything I've mentioned today in more detail or expand on it in more detail, please drop me an email. Otherwise, look out for the Oxbridge webinar that is coming up on the 9th of November. If you are also interested perhaps in applying for Oxford or Cambridge universities. And the follow-up webinar to this, which will be in the spring term, will also be advertised in the Families Bulletin. So please keep an eye out for that if you or your child want to explore this in more depth. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming along. Lovely to see you. Have a great half term if you are at school, and have a lovely evening, everyone else. The Oxford webinar details will be in the Families Bulletin this week. So the Families Bulletin that's sent out on Friday this week, the Zoom link and the details will be in there. And it's on the 9th of November, Wednesday the 9th. Okay, folks, thank you very much. Good evening. Thank you.